Good evening, everyone. I am Bassy Schwartz. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist practicing in the 5 towns in Hewlett, and I specialize in working with couples, individuals, and families through an attachment lens. And my perspective on treatment is going to come out in the way that we talk about what's going on in the war today. I know there's so much messaging out there, so I'm going to keep it short and sweet. But we always, as attachment or trauma-focused therapists, try to figure out what we can withdraw from an experience to improve on ourselves, to deepen ourselves, to create more meanings in our lives. And we never are looking to justify a trauma, but we are looking to use the experience to deepen ourselves and our connections in our life. So there's the outer call for the community, which is like, what's going on? How do we need to be there for each other more? How do we need to be a stronger and a stronger nation? And what does that mean for us? And bringing Mashiach and all of these things. And then there's the inner, turmoil that kind of gets stirred up here. Like, what does this mean to me? And it's easy to turn off that noise when we're so focused on what's going on in the outward, but I think they're super connected. The inner call is really a voice that's saying your obstacles and your blind spots and your blocks are all a really important part of you, and they are always here to teach you lessons. And this is your opportunity to stop and say, what in my life might I be able to listen to and heed to that could help me not only get through this war and this really hard time, but in the future to enhance my life and to bring more meaning to it, and how are these connected? So I think that it's just so important to recognize that there's a war being fought inside of all of us, and to be the people that we want to be. The same way the nation is, elevated through hard times, that it's supposed to bring us to return to Hashem and to do tshuva, so too inwardly also we're being called to elevate parts of ourselves that maybe we didn't listen to, maybe we didn't attend to, maybe we weren't, giving them enough of a voice in our lives. And how could giving these parts a louder voice actually help us not only in the war, but also in our lives and enhance our lives to make us the people that we're supposed to be. The outer connection, so there's the inner world and the outer world. The outer world is the way we're showing up in this war, the way we show up in our relationships, the way we show up in how we output in our lives. But our inner world is kind of the inner compass of all of those things. So the healthier that we are inside, and the more attuned we are inside and present we are inside, the easier we have to control what's going on in our outer world. And I think it's so important to recognize that sometimes we say we want to do good deeds and we want to create more goodness in the world, and we're certainly talking about that more and more each day as this war progresses. It should end immediately. But on the other hand, we can only do more good deeds and bring more good into the world if we, inside our bodies and inside our minds, are in the right space to do that. And how do we get there? So we recognize, I just saw a piece of news that really hurt me. What did it mean to me? I just saw an image, or I heard a story that really stirred me up. And those stories and those images and the terrible news we're hearing is obviously very hard to stomach, but it's also a real kind of smack in the face that life is happening, and we all experience hard things, and we all experience life, and maybe we can listen to these things, and maybe we can go in deeper and understand what they're saying. How does this connect to my family? How does this connect to my story? How does this connect to me as a Jew? How does this connect to my intergenerational trauma? How does this connect to my present relationships? And I think the connection is much stronger once we start to listen. And then once we start to listen and we say, I have a conflict about this and I have a conflict about that, and this is really tearing me up inside, and I never really went and dealt with that, and I love this and I don't do enough of it, and all of these things that just like are these going through our bodies and our minds all the time that we don't necessarily take the time to listen to, actually could get listened to maybe when we get this smack in the face. And once we listen to them, we actually could show up better in our lives. That's where the good deeds come. That's where the enhancements in our relationships come, when we say, okay, I'm going to kind of like iron out this kink. I'm going to address it. Why is it so hard for me to love my neighbor? Why is it so hard for me to be giving selflessly? Why is it so hard for me to be present when I'm davening? Why is it so hard for me to be present with my kids or my spouse or my family? And those are the things that are your output into the world. And you can't give those things wholly if you don't have a safe and present and attuned connection with yourself. So the war that we're going to win here is the war of intentionality, is that we are being called to see life in a way different way than we ever have before. And it can actually, if we listen to the messages and if we take all this awful, awful news and internalize what we can, and even a tiny bit, just apply it to what we might have felt about ourselves, or what might be a theme in our lives, or what might be a conflict that keeps coming up over and over again, and we pause and we listen and we think about how it affects us and we make it personal. That is where we can change, and we can become more intentional with how we live our lives in a positive way, more focused, more present, more attuned, more intentional. And when we're intentional, then we have the unlimited power to share our greatness with the world. When we're stuck and we're like suppressed and we're blind to what our purpose is and what our needs are and what our desires are and what makes us feel whole and gives us meaning in our lives, we cannot go out and output what we are here to output. But when we alleviate ourselves of those limitations by actually hearing our pain and hearing our voice and attending to the parts of us that have been with us our whole lives, but we just don't want to listen to them, or we don't want to think that they're important, or maybe we're having a present day conflict that we just keep trying to push under the rug or move on from. But when we actually give that some airtime, then we can release ourselves from it, and then the sky's the limit. We can be whoever we want to be, and whoever we want to be is, I think, who God is calling us to be, as an act of returning to Him in these awful, awful times. You know, what can we learn from this? Where can we go from here? We can be more present. We can be more here, attuned to here, and take the realities of life, the pain that's happening in life, and make it personal, or be grateful for what we have, or not be grateful for what we have, but spin it on its head and reframe it, or, really just therapy is in a lot of senses like tshuva in this way, is returning to yourself. You can't return to God. You can't return to your friends and your family and be your whole self until you've given yourself your whole self, until you are willing to accept yourself wholly for who you are and appreciate who you are and indulge in who you are. So I hope that, as the news progresses and things get worse and better and then worse and better, we can kind of put everything into two perspectives. There's the outer, communal pain, and that requires one part of us. And then there's the inner, spiritual, psychological pain that requires another part of us. And each of these parts are equally important. And if you're finding that you're struggling with the communal piece, you might need to give more attention to the inner piece. And if you're finding you're not struggling with the communal piece, it might be your way of avoiding the inner piece. So I think at the end of the day, we were put on this earth to live our lives and to be there for ourselves. And life gets so fast, and we move just through stages and milestones so quickly that we don't stop and smell the roses and actually feel what we're being called to feel and experience what we're supposed to be experiencing. We're just on to the next stage of life. And I feel like right now we're getting a call stop, slow down, reassess what's important, what needs to be prioritized in our lives right now. Because life, it's not a gift that just keeps on giving. There is real pain and real suffering and real limitations on this life. And you only get one. And, as in therapy, we always say, you can't be ahead of where you are. We meet you where you're at. So be where you're at. Accept yourself for who you are today. Own whatever is coming up for you. Own the pain. Accept that it's a part of your journey. And hear it and let it in. And if you need a therapist to help you with that, or a friend, or maybe just some meditation, or mindfulness exercises, or more movement in your life, whatever makes you sit with yourself in a way that's nurturing for yourself is the way to navigate and ultimately enhance your life to be a place where you can be with yourself, good, bad, ugly, messy, whatever may be coming up. And then you can go and use that power of being able to manage whatever's going on in your life to be present in the outer world and give to the outer world. And that world needs you. Clearly, that world needs you. The amount of chesed our community has done, and the amount of just support, emotional support, financial support, whatever's out there, we can't stop. We need to keep going. But if we don't fill ourselves up, we're not going to keep going. And that's where we reshift and reprioritize the basics. Taking care of our mental health, taking care of our spiritual health, taking care of our bodies, taking care of our souls, realigning ourselves and saying, okay, I'm really here to be me. I'm really here to live my life. And that means listening to the parts that I really may not want to listen to, but they're part of my journey and they can help me. And once they help me, I can help the world. I can change the world. And that starts with me. Anyways, I hope that you took something from this, and feel free to DM me. I'm going to tag my Instagram. If you want to continue the conversation, I hope to do more of these. I really love connecting, and I feel like in this social media world, it's so hard to be present. There's just the next. And in my practice and in my own journey, I've really seen just the beauty of being who you are and sitting and experiencing who you are and what you're feeling right now as the greatest strength, the greatest superpower. And, with all the, davening 3 times a day and the Yom Tovim, we are being called to be present and soak up whatever the energy of the moment is. And we obviously need to be more intentional with that. And this really, really, really painful time is a great time to start. It's a great time to say, I want to be more intentional. I want to value life for what it is. I want Am Yisrael to live. I want to be a part of this story, because the Jewish story is also really painful. We lose a lot. We suffer a lot. We have a lot of grief. But that grief and that suffering elevates us to the next level. So there's the communal and the personal, and we're here to prioritize both. So have a great night, everyone. Thank you so much for listening.